Hello again, everybody. Boy, I'm just a video-making machine as of late, aren't I? Well, I hope you're enjoying all these videos, even though the subject matter on a couple of them has been quite repetitive. This is just kind of a general-purpose progress video on various fronts, and I'm going to start with two things that I think people are probably the most interested in out of all my videos, although I know that everything I do appeals to a different part of the crowd who has subscribed to me or otherwise stumbled upon my videos. And those two things would be the Farmall and the grain truck. And I guess I'll start with the Farmall first. I'm really waiting for some of this rain to pass us over so that I can get out there with my two-wheel drive open differential truckling and not get stuck. We have some spark plug wires. My grandfather went out and picked up a set of genuine case spark plug wires for the good old Farmall Super C. So I hope as soon as the ground dries up that I can get out there and get some work done on that front. As far as the grain truck goes, well, you might remember the last video I made about that. I found a Chevrolet dealer, friend of the family, long time in business, that had some keys for every GM product manufactured in 1962. They had a master set of keys, and they were kind enough to loan them to us, but the key cylinder went missing, and I thought someone had stolen it. Well, I'm pleased to report that the other day I was cleaning out the back of my pickup truck, removing some superfluous crap, and that's a technical term. I discovered that the key switch was in fact hiding in there. So it's just amazing what you'll find when you bother to clean something up. And on a few other fronts, let's see, I've got some other things to talk about here. Oh, look at this piece of junk. Well, everybody, I went and got myself a 2N3055 transistor. Popped that in here, being careful to put the insulating sheet back so I wouldn't end up potentially shorting it out. Put this thing together, hooked up a voltmeter to it along with a dummy load, and guess what? Turned the power switch on. It hummed a lot less, I'll grant you that. And it worked for a little while, and then all of a sudden the regulation went haywire. Just all of a sudden it went bonkers, started putting out about 21 volts DC, which is way too much, and it had a lot of ripple on the output. So I'm not quite sure what went wrong, but frankly I think I'm done with this thing. I just think this is going to get relegated to the parts bin. I mean, I'll give anything a shot, and if this thing had proved to be stable and reliable over a period of hours, I'd have said, alright, I'll knock a hole in the front panel, mount a fuse holder in it, try to give it a little more protection than it had, and just generally be careful with it. But I don't think that's going to be the case here. I'm probably going to salvage my transistor, maybe save the transformer and the diode bridge down there, possibly the power indicator light. The switch isn't too good, and then I'm just going to scrap the rest of this thing. So that's the story on that. And then a little bit of an update on the tape decks. Well, let's see what I've got here. I've got this Technics RSM218, and I actually started out, some of you had requested that I talk about head cleaning and demagnetization, and that was something that I was definitely going to do, but I didn't like the way that video turned out. Suffice it to say, the playback and recording and erase heads in this thing were absolutely filthy. I could not believe they're actually the proper color now if you look in there, and if I can get the lamp in there to where you can see them. Unfortunately, this camera doesn't refocus. There's also a ton of built-up oxide crud on the pinch roller and the capstan drive, so that was pretty insanely dirty. I went through so many cotton swabs, it's not even funny cleaning that up. Now, the belts in this thing definitely look as though they've seen better days, but the simple fact of the matter is this thing is running slow, and it's running constantly slow. Now, one of you commenters said that you had to replace the motor on a very similar deck many years ago. This one actually has a speed adjustment. There's a hole back here that says service use only, and that would allow presumably a plastic-bodied screwdriver to enter a hole on the back of this motor and adjust the speed either way. So I've got to figure out a way to get this thing speed up a little bit, and I'll probably put belts on it at some point, although it doesn't seem to need them right now, because it only has occasional episodes where it demonstrates particularly noticeable wow and flutter. So here's a little demonstration of that. You make a tape on a deck with slow speed, and it sounds fine on that deck. You play it on another deck, and it doesn't sound so good. So here is a little demonstration of a tape recorded on this deck, and if this camera didn't roll off the high end so badly, you could tell that this thing has nice treble response now, much better than it did prior to cleaning the heads and demagnetizing them. So there's a tape made on this deck. We take it down here to this dual well Technics RSTR 232, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. This is another one of the decks I picked up. I put this in here, switch the input on the stereo, and press play, and you'll notice that this tape was definitely recorded slow, even if you're pretty tone deaf. So there's definitely some work to be done there. This deck works reasonably well. I've cleaned and demagnetized the heads on it as well. But the auto stop deck over here has definitely got a little bit of character. It likes to kick out suddenly on rewind and fast forward. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I haven't even so much as popped the cover on it. Sometimes on a particularly long tape like this one, it'll kick out on the playback mode. But in general, it basically works, so I figure there's just a little bit of fine-tuning to do there. As you can hear in this demonstration, speed's pretty close and stable. Yes, I am a big kid at heart, and this is one of the tapes from my childhood. This was issued on the Peter Pan Records label. As you can see, it has definitely been well loved over the years. If anybody knows anything more about this, including whether or not it was ever reissued on some other medium, such as CD, I'd love to know about it, because this tape has been underwater in a basement flood. It's generally not in very good shape. It was also played on a lot of dubious quality equipment when I was a youngster. So, yeah, I'm a big kid at heart, and if you think that's silly, well, you're just going to have to get over it, because I'm kind of proud of that fact. Here's the main circuit board out of that Sony mini disc player and recorder. I was going through the circuit here, tracing back from the front panel. I managed to get a hold of a service manual for this thing, as well as some great help from YouTube user THEtechknight, who helped me to understand how these vacuum fluorescent display power and drive circuits work, because they're something that I don't have a whole lot of practical experience with. In fact, this is the first one I've ever worked on. So anyway, that's what's up with that. And I got a hold of a service manual for this thing. And right here is the circuit in question. This right here is actually the negative voltage regulator that goes to the display panel. And there's also the coming off of, get that lamp out of here. Coming off of the power transformer, there's a low voltage AC circuit that goes to drive the filaments in the panel. And I am missing that voltage. And it turns out the reason I'm missing that voltage is because of a failed part. This little thing right here, this little tiny zener diode was killing the filament voltage going to the display panel. I also found right here capacitor 332, 100 microfarads, 63 volts, was wide open going to that regulator, and I'm sure that can't be good. So I've gone ahead and pulled it out. We got some replacements on the way. Just decided to replace every capacitor in that circuit, because who knows? Some of these tested right on, but caps are so cheap. But as I've been working on this, I've kind of reached an interesting conclusion. I'm wondering if this thing has ever worked right since it was new. Furthermore, I'm also wondering how it managed to pass whatever tests the folks at the Public Radio and TV benefit sale put it through. And I want to show you something here. This is the solder side of the main circuit board, and I've been going over this. Put that lamp back here now. Been going over this, and I have found a ton of bad solder joints. One of the most notable, there's this multi-voltage regulator here. This is a Sanyo LA5620 regulator. It has multiple outputs, and the data sheet for it in fact states that it is designed for use in mini disc applications as well as other stereo components. Pin number 2 on that regulator had almost no solder on it. I don't know how that was supposed to work, but I went ahead and resoldered it, made things a lot better than they were, because it certainly wasn't supposed to be that way. But this is the most interesting thing right here. These are the analog audio inputs and outputs for this thing, and all 4 of the leads going to that are cracked. right at the base. Now I don't really understand how something like that could possibly happen other than bad solder or excessive abuse, which I don't think was the case here. But it makes me wonder how they tested this thing, because these aren't really making good enough contact to work well. Maybe they used the optical digital ins and outs. I don't know. But the thing that strikes me as so odd about this, not only are these jacks mounted with these heavy solder joints right here, which would serve to not only ground but also secure them in place, but they're also screwed to the back panel, and that screw was in place. So I really can't understand how those got to be cracked. And again, it makes me wonder if this thing worked properly from the get-go. Just to give you an idea, I'll pull out the magnifier here and show you what they look like up close and personal, so you can see the little crack rings around each of the 4 solder joints. Alright, I have no idea how well this is going to work. This is one of the few times I've ever videotaped anything, or rather digitally recorded anything through a magnifying glass. You can see here, take this screwdriver, you can see there's a ring around that one, there's a ring around that one, and there's a ring around that one. This one over here is really noticeable. You can really see the ring around it. You can just kind of see how they've cracked. So those will need to be reflowed. And almost finally here, this is a box of miscellaneous cable stuff that I picked up at that same benefit sale. These things always go for a song. I gave $8 for this entire box of cables. And it's not just audio cables. There's a FireWire cable. Here's something I've never seen before. This is an APC. In fact, somebody actually wrote backup APC on it. This is an APC UPS, I would assume probably smart signaling, to Apple serial bus. And it actually has a pass-through on it so that you could have your modem or your printer connected at the same time, presumably. Although I don't know how well that would work. You know, presumably that would interrupt communications between your printer or your modem if the UPS had something that it wanted to say, like if the power suddenly went out. That's another Apple serial cable. Got a multi-cable there, probably for some kind of component video output would be my guess. AM loop antenna, another nice FireWire cable. Actually a SCSI cable, and they didn't have any idea what that was. Likewise, also a 50-pin SCSI terminator. And a couple of more unique adapter cables. There's a couple in here that go from, that's not it, this goes from single RCA phono plug to 1/8" connector. There's another one here. Where did it go? Yeah, here it is, right here. This goes from stereo phono plugs to stereo 1/4". Could be an interesting cable to get into some trouble with. And neat little Sanyo tape recorder microphone. This is a dynamic microphone from Sanyo for use with a tape recorder, probably. I haven't tried that out to see if it works yet, but I'll bet it does. And then, of course, more Apple serial cables. And then something that the guy running the sale threw in at the last moment. Judging by the castle-like or shield-like logo on this, I would guess that this goes with a Magnavox record changer of some description. This is a 45 RPM spindle adapter. And then, of course, something else that my dad picked up at a garage sale, which is completely unrelated. This is the 5-cent Radio Shack TRS, or Trash, 80 computer cassette recorder. And there's really nothing special about this, other than it has a remote operations jack for use with the computer. But other than that, it's just your standard AC, DC, and DC battery-operated cassette player. And for 5 cents, I don't think we went too far wrong, because it works very, very well. It's not exactly high fidelity, but it works well for what it is, and should be able to get a lot of use out of that. If not with a computer, then certainly as a general-purpose cassette recorder, because I'm always looking for good working examples of those. So there you have it, basically a status update on everything we've been working on. And I've got some more car videos coming up. I know the Keykeeper has been working on the serpentine belt in the Naughtiac Bonneville. It was in sad shape, and he's got a motor mount that he can't get to come loose right now. But that's everything I can think of to make a video for right now. Thank you for watching.